Imagine sitting down today, in perfect health, taking out a pen and writing a sealed letter for your partner to open 20 years from now.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's heavy.
Right. Not just a quick note, but a deliberate anchor dropped into the future, waiting for the exact moment they might need it most. That is exactly what a woman named Maureen did.
Which is just incredible foresight.
Absolutely. Today, our mission on this deep dive is to explore a profoundly moving stack of sources. We're looking at excerpts from a memoir titled She Remains in All My Spaces, alongside these accompanying essays by a man named Ryan.
Yeah, and this archive compiles 30 years of cyberchat transcripts, journals, poems, and letters between him and his late wife, Maureen.
It's rare to encounter documentation like this. I mean, you're looking at the entire architectural blueprint of a relationship.
Right, from the very first awkward digital greeting all the way to the agonizing final goodbye.
Yeah.
But the true value in these sources isn't just the timeline of events. It's really in the granular details of how human resilience is manufactured.
Okay, let's unpack this because, and to be clear, with you listening right up front, this does involve heavy loss. We are looking at a story of losing a partner to cancer.
Yeah, which is tough.
It is. But what you'll find as we navigate these pages is that the tragedy is really only a piece of the puzzle. Fundamentally, this is a masterclass in how a lifelong connection is built from the ground up, literally and figuratively.
It really offers a roadmap, for evaluating the legacies you are building in your own life right now.
Exactly. So let's roll the clock back to the beginning. Before Ryan and Maureen could ever build a physical life together, they had to construct an emotional foundation using nothing but, glowing pixels on a screen.
Right, we're dropping back to late 1995 and early 96.
The absolute dawn of the consumer internet.
Exactly, and they were 404 miles apart. Ryan was up in Northern California, and Maureen was down in Southern California.
Complete with totally 90s screen names, by the way.
Oh yeah, you gotta love the screen names.
Ryan went by Simple Mind, and Maureen went by SC Gal. And when I was reading through these early dial-up era transcripts, it struck me that the early text-based internet functioned almost like a dark confessional booth.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, because there were no video calls, no instant photo sharing, just text. And paradoxically, that sensory deprivation, the sheer lack of physical cues, almost forces two people to bare their souls much faster than they ever would sitting across from each other in a brightly lit coffee shop.
What's fascinating here is why that specific digital vulnerability mattered so much for these two.
Right.
That physical distance, those 404 miles, it functioned as a protective barrier. It allowed two people who were carrying immense heavy trauma to securely build a shared emotional language before they ever shared physical space.
The distance made it safe to be completely terrified.
Exactly.
And the trauma we are talking about is deeply formative. In these early chats, Maureen reveals she is a proud Armenian immigrant whose family fled Lebanon.
Yeah, she literally survived falling bombs.
It's wild. The ceiling of her room actually collapsed on her crib when she was an infant.
Wow.
And on top of that, she discloses in these text boxes that she suffers from terrifying night seizures.
Yeah.
She had to take a heavy, mind-fogging medication called Tegretol.
Yeah, she had spent time in hospitals with wires glued to her head, having seizures medically induced. Just incredibly heavy stuff for a young person.
Definitely. Then you look at the other side of the screen. Ryan describes himself in the transcripts as a mutt from a broken family.
Right, he had no relationship with his biological father.
None. And he spent a significant portion of his childhood basically cowering in his bedroom, navigating the unpredictable fallout of his stepfather's severe PTSD from serving in Vietnam.
So both of them learned very early on that the world is an inherently unsafe place.
Two deeply wounded people just typing into the void in the dark.
Yeah.
And we see them slowly figuring out how to trust. There's this pivotal moment in the transcripts where Ryan is trying to explain the mechanics of love to Marina.
And he doesn't use cliches, which is what I love about this part.
Right. No cliches. Instead, he shares a story about a foster child named Caitlin who hadn't spoken in years.
Right.
A teacher finally reaches this child through a story about a kid asking a lion to be her friend. In the story, the lion says no, because he hasn't been tamed.
And the lion explains that to tame means to put yourself in someone's heart so they trust you.
Yeah. And the psychology of Ryan using that specific analogy is brilliant.
It really is. He was actively communicating to Maureen that love isn't just some sudden magical spark that you passively fall into.
Right, it's an active process.
Exactly. It requires the deliberate, patient effort of taming each other's fears. He was basically telling her, like, I know you are scared, and I am willing to do the work to make you feel safe.
And you actually see the mechanism working in real time in the text logs. Maureen types back, Ryan, your stories are taming my heart.
That's just beautiful.
It is. The ultimate proof of that taming, the moment this digital confessional solidifies, is when Ryan types, and he does it in all caps, Y-E-Z-K-E-Z, Serum M.
Which is Armenian for I love you.
Yes. He crosses the cultural and digital divide by taking the time to learn her language to make the sentiment undeniable.
That phrase is the catalyst, really. It provided the emotional security they needed to finally bridge the geographical gap.
So they have this airtight digital foundation, but eventually pixels have to translate to physical reality. What happens when the screen disappears and they're standing face-to-face at the Burbank airport?
Well, the sources move us into a phase of their lives that is really all about the proof of love.
Right.
The essay titled Here captures this transition perfectly. It's the summer of 1997, and Ryan brings Maureen up to his hometown in Grass Valley.
Okay.
At one point, Ryan's mother casually asks Maureen a massive question. She says, why do you love him?
And Maureen doesn't hesitate. She answers instantly, because he's here.
It sounds so incredibly simple, almost like a throwaway line, but it carried immense weight for her.
Oh, totally. She actually repeated that exact same phrase years later when they were exhausted, sitting on the floor of a Moscow airport. You're here.
For someone whose entire early life was defined by the instability of fleeing war zones and battling unpredictable medical emergencies in her own brain, a partner whose presence was utterly consistent was revolutionary.
Being here wasn't just physical proximity. It was a promise of permanence.
Exactly.
I have to stop you there, though, and push back on something from the sources. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because when we talk about what being here actually looks like in practice, the essays list some incredible global experiences. These two traveled the world.
They really did.
They stood under the Eiffel Tower in Paris. They touched the Parthenon in Athens. They looked up at Christ the Redeemer in Brazil. Those are cinematic peak life experiences.
Yeah, absolute bucket list stuff.
Yet, when Ryan writes about the defining foundational moments of their love in the essay, too, he completely bypasses Paris and Athens. Instead, he elevates a dusty sledgehammer and drywall mud. I'm struggling to see how grueling manual labor beats a romantic evening at the Eiffel Tower.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture of their shared psychology, it makes perfect sense.
How so?
In 1999, shortly before their wedding, Maureen's father, Armin, essentially handed them a test. He gave them a sledgehammer, pointed to a small, dilapidated house behind his own, and told them it needed to be completely gutted and remodeled if they wanted to live in it.
Wow. Talk about pressure.
Right. He just gave them one word in Armenian na, which means go.
And they went. The essays describe them taking their first swings at the walls, expecting the drywall to just crumble. But the wall doesn't break.
No, because they realize it's old school lath and plaster. It is brutal, heavy, stubborn material.
Oh, man. They spent hours ripping down wood strips with crowbars, filling plastic bags with heavy debris until their hands literally bleed.
Yeah, they emerge from this house looking like ghosts, completely caked head to toe in gray dust.
But the grit is the point, isn't it?
Exactly. Anyone can be happy in Paris. But holding up heavy, awkward sheets of drywall for someone else when your arms are failing, learning to mix the mud, tape the joints, and paint the walls together, that requires an entirely different level of commitment.
Yeah, Ryan explicitly notes that love is a verb.
It is. The shared physical labor of destroying the old structure to build a new, safe one became the literal and metaphorical blueprint for their marriage.
They built the physical walls they would sleep within on their wedding night.
Oh.
It's a powerful image. The grit under your fingernails, the strength to hold the wall up until your partner drives the nails home.
Yeah.
And thank goodness they built it out of lath and plaster because that foundation was about to take a direct hit.
The sources reference a quote from Joan Didion to mark this shift. Life changes fast. Life changes in an instant.
Yeah.
The era of their lives, defined by building a family, raising their two sons, Harmon and Elias, is abruptly interrupted by a medical tsunami.
Think of chronic illness as a hostile takeover of a relationship. The disease tries to buy up a controlling share of your identity.
That's a chilling way to look at it, but it's true.
It wants to strip away the titles of husband, wife, partner, and replace them entirely with the clinical labels of patient and caregiver. And this takeover attempt starts when Maureen begins experiencing severe pain.
Right, and after weeks of frustrating misdiagnoses, doctors find internal bleeding and a blockage. It's colon cancer.
It requires immediate surgery and the use of colostomy bags. This is where Ryan's promise of being here is called upon in the most visceral, unglamorous way possible.
Yeah, the essays detail him changing her colostomy pouches, cleaning the stoma, and packing her open surgical wounds with gauze.
And to survive that, to maintain his composure so she doesn't see him break, Ryan develops a mental mantra while he's cleaning her wounds. He tells himself, "Breathe, it is not my pain. It is not my pain."
He had to actively compartmentalize his own panic. He couldn't let his fear amplify hers.
But then the narrative delivers a brutal, almost unbelievable twist. Right around their youngest son's birthday, Ryan discovers a mass of his own.
Yeah, he is diagnosed with testicular cancer. Suddenly, the primary caregiver is also a cancer patient.
It is a staggering logistical and emotional nightmare. You have a household with 2 sick parents and 2 young children.
They literally end up sitting 5 feet apart in a clinic, both receiving intravenous chemotherapy at the exact same time.
Sitting there with toxic chemicals pumping into their veins, Maureen actually jokes to the clinic nurses, "It's a date."
Wow.
And they survive the sheer nausea and the bone-deep physical exhaustion by eating peanut butter just to stop the chemo-induced hiccups.
So what does this all mean? How do 2 people survive that kind of dual trauma without their marriage collapsing?
Well, it goes right back to the hostile takeover metaphor you mentioned.
Right.
Sitting in those chemo chairs, joking about being on a date, they refused to let the disease sit on their board of directors. They relied on the taming they established in 1995 and the drywall holding they learned in 1999 to keep their us intact. They fiercely protected their shared identity. But despite that incredible psychological resilience, biology operates on its own terms.
Sadly, yes. The journals document that after 33 grueling treatments, all medical formulas are exhausted. Maureen's body is failing.
The tumor markers are high, and she is forced to make the impossibly heavy decision to stop treatment and enter hospice care.
Yeah.
Now, before we get into this next part, we need to pause and make it completely clear to you listening. The sources get in some incredibly charged territory here regarding end-of-life choices, specifically euthanasia, the death prescription, and religious afterlife beliefs.
Oh, yes. And we must explicitly state that we are not taking sides or endorsing any viewpoint on these political or moral topics.
Absolutely not. We are strictly and impartially reporting Maureen and Ryan's deeply personal considerations, just as they are found in the source material.
We're simply conveying their journey through their journals.
Exactly. So with that understood, it's vital to recognize the sheer weight of her decision. She actually went so far as to complete the paperwork for euthanasia.
The journals reveal that earlier in her life, Maureen had condoned euthanasia for terminal illnesses, specifically referencing Dr. Kevorkian, who is also of Armenian descent.
Right.
When she entered hospice, she navigated the legal requirements and obtained the dignity in death prescription.
And the sources note the hauntingly specific cost of that prescription, $787.
Just incredibly specific.
Yeah, that was the exact price of the pharmaceutical cocktail to end her life on her own terms, to bypass the final stages of pain. She had it in her possession.
Yeah.
But ultimately, she makes the profound choice not to take it.
Ryan writes about questioning her on this. He asks if she's worried about her Christian faith, if she's afraid for her soul.
And Maureen's reasoning is incredibly specific. She explains that through her faith, Jesus has shown her exactly where she is going, a place she describes in her journals as a garden with butterflies. She consciously decides to endure the natural, painful process, focusing entirely on walking into that garden.
And on Valentine's Day, 2025, she doesn't wake up.
Which brings us to the aftermath. When you lose the co-architect of your life, how do you keep the building from collapsing?
We see the raw mechanics of Ryan's grief explored in the essay, Why I Started Writing After Loss.
His initial response is pure robotic duty. The morning she dies, he follows her strict, pre-written directives for cremation. He makes the phone calls.
But the shock manifests in a way that is just, well, it's hard to comprehend. He drops his son off at high school and then drives himself to work.
He signs in at the very school where they both taught. He walks into his classroom and operates on pure autopilot.
But that protective numbness eventually shatters, leaving a massive void. He writes about losing his passion for teaching.
Yeah, the energy required to care about his students or plan lessons is just gone. He is completely adrift.
The turning point, the moment the lights slowly start to come back on, occurs when he finally forces himself to look backward.
Right.
He opens her old physical journals. He digs out those printed emails from 1995, the original chat logs between Simple Mind and S.E. Gal.
He realizes that words, vulnerability, and writing are the exact tools that brought them together in the first place. So he opens a blank journal of his own, and he starts to write.
And the process of writing acts as a defibrillator. He starts sharing his poetry with his high school students.
That act of vulnerability, showing his students his grief, reconnects him to them. It rebuilds his capacity for empathy, which allows him to carry on the legacy of compassion that Maureen was known for.
This raises an important question, though, about the nature of grief. Does retreating into decades-old chat logs and old letters risk freezing a grieving person in the past?
That's the trap, right? Living in a museum of your own history.
Yeah, exactly.
But the sources provide a very clear counter-narrative. For Ryan, reading these logs wasn't about clinging to ghosts or living in denial. It was an active, necessary excavation.
He was digging back into those memories to remind himself of the literal and emotional strength they built back in 1999 when they were swinging sledgehammers.
He wasn't freezing himself in the past. He was retrieving the tools he needed to parent his sons and guide his students in the present. He had to remember how the foundation was built so he could stand on it alone.
And we see the result of that excavation in the essay titled, They Keep Me. It's Memorial Day weekend in 2026, over a year after Maureen's passing. Ryan is hiking in the Sierra Nevada with his two sons.
Harmon is now 23, and Elias is 18.
Right, and the dynamic of the family has completely flipped. Ryan notes in the essay that he didn't plan the trip.
He didn't buy the groceries, and he didn't drive the winding mountain roads. His sons handled all the logistics.
They hiked over 20,000 steps along the Kings River, and his sons led the way the entire time.
Ryan watches them, remembering one of Maureen's final written wishes in a poem, keep them close.
And looking at his capable, loving sons leading him through the wilderness, Ryan has an epiphany. He realizes, they keep me.
It is a profound shift. The children they raise on that Plaster Foundation are now the ones holding up the walls for him. And that brings this entire deep dive right back to you, the listener. As you process Ryan and Maureen's story, take a hard look at the architecture of your own life.
Are you putting in the deliberate effort to tame the fears of the people you love?
Are you building a Plaster Foundation, willing to get covered in the drywall dust of daily life to prove you are here? And perhaps most crucially, are you documenting your life, your thoughts, and your love in a way that could offer a lifeline to someone else decades from now when they're lost in the dark?
Because documentation isn't just about preserving the past, it is an active gift to the future.
It truly is. And I want to leave you with one final detail from the Essay 23 that completely reframes what it means to give that gift. Remember how we started this deep dive talking about writing a sealed letter for the future?
Right.
Maureen didn't just write letters at the very end of her life when she was in hospice and knew she was dying.
No, the sources reveal an incredible act of foresight. She started writing sealed letters for Ryan to open on specific dates, years before cancer was ever a reality.
The very first sealed letter she wrote for him, waiting quietly in a box for the future, was penned the day before their youngest son was born.
Wow.
She was young, she was healthy, but she was already preparing a safety net of words for him. She was actively partnering in parenting from the future.
That is just so powerful.
It is. So I challenge you to ponder this as you go about your day. What would happen if you sat down right now, took out a pen, and wrote a letter for your loved one to open 20 years from now? Because in the end, love isn't just a sudden spark. It is the deliberate effort to tame a heart, the grit to hold the walls up until the nails are driven home, and the courage to leave a light on for someone in the future you might not get to see. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.